Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're listening, whatever time you're watching. Welcome to Your Onion podcast show. Today we have Jankees Burger. Do I mention your middle name? Because in your LinkedIn is it Trimpe?
Yeah, it's Trimpe Burger. It's a double surname.
That's a double barrel surname.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's nothing. My predecessors one day asked the Dutch king in the 1800s, I think, something, if they could keep both the female, the wife, and the husband's name. That's how it started.
Ah.
So it's nothing with nobility. I wish it was.
I was going to say, you mentioned the whole royalty. I thought, here we go. This is a story.
No. Just a request to keep both names.
Okay. So, Jankees, can you give I would say, like an elevator pitch of what you actually do here in Qatar, just to give people an idea who I've got on the show?
Yes. I arrived 1.5 years ago here to be managing director of Nakilat and Damen Shipyards Qatar, which is a joint venture between Nakilat and Damen. And Damen is a Dutch worldwide shipbuilder. And I was retired, and I had worked before for Damen as MD in the dredge yard.
Yeah.
And then they basically they were short of a person, so they rang me and said, "Are you available? And do you want to go? And because we need someone there, and we don't know for how long." So I asked my wife for permission, and
absolutely, ask the boss.
Yes, and then I went to Qatar. I had been here in 2012, also looking for a job, also with Damen, also going to the same dockyard.
Oh, really?
And then it didn't happen because they didn't require that wouldn't be as MD at the time, because I was an MD at the time.
Yeah.
And but anyway, I arrived here, and after a job interview at Nakilat, I joined the 1st of October in 2017, and it's a and Nakilat Damen Shipyards Qatar is half of the dockyard in Ras Laffan. The other half is a combination between Keppel, the Singapore shipbuilding company, and Nakilat. And we build all kinds of vessels, naval vessels, merchant vessels up to 110, 120 meters. We've built about all the new tugs here in Qatar for all the ports, for Hamad, Messaid Port, Al Ruwais, and for Ras Laffan. And we do refits of super yachts, and we have last year delivered 2 super yachts to a local owner.
Oh, wow. Excellent. All right, well, we'll go into that later. I want to find I want to find out more information about you.
Yeah.
So you're from Holland.
I am from Holland.
Yeah. So what did you study at school, and take us on a little brief journey of the kind of jobs that you did before you arrived here.
I went to high school where they taught Latin and Greek as well. So I've done 6 years of Latin, which is quite handy if you go to Italy, Spain.
Yeah.
Sometimes if I don't know, I don't.
Well, why were you interested in languages at a young age?
No. But that's the.
That was the norm in the.
No, it's the basically the preparing for university. But then Latin and Greek are not the usual topics, but that's sort of old style school where they teach that.
Mm-hmm. And where was this? Where was this in Holland?
Nijmegen, basically in the center of Holland. Okay. Nijmegen is famous for the Arnhem, where the landings in the Second World War.
Oh, really?
And Nijmegen is also known for the annual Nijmegen marches, which is 4 days, with I think now about 50,000 people who walk every day 30, 40, 50 or 60 kilometers. And
what, for 4 days?
Yes, just every day again they do.
Why do they do that?
40, it's a performance. It's at the end you get a medal for it, and they come from all over the world, also military from all over the world, and it's Nijmegen is quite a big city. It's a complete festival then in Nijmegen. But anyway, I did high school there, and then I didn't really want to study to go to university. So someone pointed me in the direction of the Navy, and as it happened, there were 3 small mine hunters who did, in those days, they did sort of inshore representation, because Nijmegen is quite far inland.
I was going to say, it seems a bit bizarre. Yeah,
they came on the river.
Oh, okay.
And the good thing was it was free drinks, which is not allowed basically had to say much about it in Qatar, but that was quite attractive.
Yeah.
And then I visited twice during my last 2 years at high school, the Naval College in Den Helder, and then I thought that's a good idea. And in the end of the 4 guys in my class who did the mathematical side of the school, 3 went to the Navy, and my best friend as well. And so I went to the Naval College.
Yeah.
And to my disappointment, it was also a lot of studying. I also thought military, it's sports and I won't going to say entertainment, but it's sports and then a bit of studying. But the accent was quite heavily on the studying, a lot of different topics. But all topics you touch the surface, and you don't go like in a real university degree. You go in depth.
Okay, so
you have things like administrative law and criminal law. I mean, all the psychology, sociology, all the different topics to prepare you to be a naval officer. And
so that's what you were studying, to be a naval officer.
Yeah, and seaman naval officer, because you have in our Navy, you have basically 5 branches: the Marines, Supply Corps, the electrical engineers, the technical engineers, and then the seamen. And the seamen basically become the commanding officers of vessels. And one way or another, I got attracted to submarines.
Oh, really?
And then you get some extra tests psychologically if you're okay to go to submarines. So I joined submarines. And,
why? Because you are going to be underwater. Is that why?
Yes, and then you live in a confined space.
Yeah.
If you immediately start hitting someone in a discussion, then that won't work.
No.
So there's some things on tolerance, sense of humor. And so I joined submarines and never regretted it. Disadvantages, because I later on realized when I went to the surface ships that sunbathing is not really one of the parts on the submarine.
No.
And I always thought it's not proper on a submarine, on a surface ship, because sometimes we would pass surface ships and then during the lunch break there would be stretchers outside on the side,
really?
and they would nicely lie in the sun, sunbathing. And I thought, when I'm on a surface ship, I'm not going to do that. That's not Navy. That's not military. I have to admit, I didn't get a stretcher, but I did go outside in the sun during the lunch when I went to frigates.
So how long were you in submarines? How long were you?
Until I was one of the few who did basically all the jobs in the submarine service, both ashore and at sea.
Yeah.
So until about when I was 45.
Wow.
So from 21 to 45. Wow. But sometimes I went back to surface ships, and I one of the last jobs was when I was a captain, basically in charge of the group of submarines. And after, because we only have diesel-electric submarines, at 35 years of age, you are too old. And
for
then
what?
To be on board submarines.
Really?
I can tell you something about why that is, but then you go to surface ships, and if you're lucky enough, you get a command of a frigate. So after I left submarines, I'd had 2 submarines, one of the oldest ones in the submarine service and one of the newest ones in the submarine service.
So why are you too old? What's the reason behind that?
When I was
mental?
during my first command, sometimes you go to bed to sleep and they wake you up an hour later to get out of your bed, because for a number of events on board of a submarine you have to be present. The submarine knows basically 3 status. One's on the surface, then everyone can see you. The second one is dived, but at periscope depth. So then you raise the periscope and you can see.
Yeah.
And then anything deeper than periscope depth is deep, and you can't see anything. You only have the sonars to listen. But returning from deep back to the periscope depth is one of the riskiest procedures, because sonars don't give distance. So of a vessel, and there are some additional things to find out if a vessel is nearby. But there are areas in the ocean you can go back to periscope depth on statistics, because the chance that there is another vessel at the same time at the same place is very low. Yeah. But in general, if you have an area where there are many ships, you have to basically create a safe picture before you go back to periscope. So basically going back to that, they wake you up, you get up, you perform something for about an hour, and you go back to bed, and then maybe you have 4 hours sleep, but half an hour later they can come back to you and you have to get out of your bed again. And when you're 31, my personal experience, no problem. The moment you have some time to go to sleep, you take the time to sleep.
Yeah.
So you can handle that. When I was the second command I had when I was 34, 35, and it hurt a bit more.
Yeah.
So I do understand that. For the officers it's 35. For the rest of the crew it's 40.
Okay.
And so that's basically the reason.
Right. And so
you do make me talk.
No, absolutely. That's the whole point. I'm fascinated. So, so you left the Navy at about 45, did you say?
No. We have a retirement age that is gradually increasing in the armed forces in Holland in general.
Yeah.
We're now almost at 68. We come from 65 retirement age and we're going up. But I basically, when I joined, I would have retired at 50. That had been increased to 55 without asking me, but the rest all had to do it as well.
Okay.
And so I left at 56 and a half. So
so you were in the Navy all that time?
Yeah. And the last 5 years I was director of the Coast Guard in Netherlands, which was also an interesting job. That was basically already a step from the military to outside civilian life.
Civilian life, yeah.
Because the first thing I lost when I joined the Coast Guard was my rank, because it was Jankees and not Captain, Sir.
Okay.
So that was a good training.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it, and we had just changed the coast. They didn't tell me that before I joined, but my predecessor had just accepted a complete reorganization, and when it had to be implemented, he was gone. So I was allowed to do that, and in general, it was a very good reorganization. But some things, needed some tuning. And I know from the past, one of the things they always say, you shouldn't have one manager plan a change and then another one executing it, because the one who's executing says it was a rotten plan.
Yeah,
and the
so
one who planned it says it's not been executed
absolutely.
properly. So basically,
so it should be done by the same person.
It's probably the same if you do something for a production, do it yourself, but otherwise,
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, no, for sure. So was that a learning curve coming out of the Navy? Well, the Coast Guard was part of the Navy, but was that a learning curve as well?
Yeah, totally different area, because it's the Coast Guard in the Netherlands. The North Sea is one of the, if not the busiest area regarding ship traffic in the world. It's small enough that with all the modern means, electrical means, we have basically 100% coverage of the whole North Sea. But the Coast Guard does both law enforcement and search and rescue. So we have to check, for example, tankers with oil or gas on board. We don't want too close to the coast, so they have a route that's further away from the coast. But it's much cheaper for the vessels to go close under the coast. And
what's your job? To basically, do you get a boat out there?
Yeah, no, we had the Coast Guard in the Netherlands has aircraft, helicopters, ships.
Oh, really?
And the interesting thing was we had all the law enforcement agencies in the Coast Guard, and when I joined, they all were on their own. They were fighting for the customs, for the police, for the military police.
So that was all brought. That was the plan to bring them all.
Yes, and another thing is that it's very difficult in Holland and probably anywhere else in the world to share information, intelligence between agencies. There has to be, because if I stop you because you didn't obey traffic rules, and then I start checking your car, I find drugs in the back of your car.
Yeah.
Then in Holland it's very difficult, because I didn't stop you to check for drugs. They will still get to you, but the court will say you basically illegally acquired this information. So the advantage of getting the people together in the Coast Guard was drinking coffee together.
Yeah.
Because they would, of course, talk about work, and then we would exchange some information during. We are working on something there. We are, and then the agencies separately could go the formal way to ask for information. Whereas if they had got that information in the normal contact, that it wouldn't be allowed. So now they say, okay, we go the whole way down, but they already know beforehand the answers.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But then it's been legalized.
Yeah.
So that was interesting, and the limitations and possibilities of law enforcement. You see it here as well. I mean, on the Al-Shamal traffic rules. If you do not really enforce the law, then people don't. You have a limited amount of people who then obey the law.
No, absolutely.
So it's.
So how long were you at the Coast Guard?
5 years, and then after the Coast Guard.
And
I
did you
retired.
implement the whole new policy?
Yes, but they continue changing, of course. Over time, I've learned that in basically every job is the angle you look at things makes your interest area.
Yeah.
And at the end, you think, okay, it's now ready, and then you would come in and you would look at it, and I would say, strange. I had never looked at it that way, but yes, that's an improvement.
Okay.
So every new person in an organization, if he has the inclination to look at things in general, or specific things, brings a new angle into it. And so my successors changed things again, and they will continue.
Yeah.
Everywhere they will continue, hopefully.
Yeah. And so after the Coast Guard, what did you do then?
I immediately started looking for a job with Damen, because
so that was you came to retirement then, because you were still in the Navy. The Coast Guard came out in the Navy, so basically you were retired from the Navy.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
Good,
because that was like your family. That was your family.
No.
Well, I thought that's what they always say.
No.
Okay.
I always say, if you're a soccer player and you still love to play football, but you think the time has come to leave, that's a good time. So when I left the Coast Guard, if they then said to me, you have to do another year, I would have done it with all my heart and with lots of enthusiasm. But it's a time to come and a time to go. Okay. So
but you still wanted to be involved with the whole.
No, it's also a cost picture. I had 3 children still going to university, which is quite an expensive hobby. And despite the fact that it's a good retirement pay, it would still be interesting to earn some extra money. Yeah. So that was one of the reasons I looked for a job. And in the end, I ended, as I said, with Damen dredging, which is totally nothing to do with any experience I ever had. It was really the general.
Really? Why? Well, it's a boat, isn't it? Dredging?
I went to the Damen headquarters, and they approached me to be area service manager for Africa. And in the end, it didn't. Okay. It didn't happen because the guy who was going to, the director who was going to hire me, left, and they said, "Well, we don't know, you're an expensive guy." And long story short, then I got a call from a place in Holland that I didn't even know there was anything from Damen.
Oh, really?
And they called and they said, "Come and have a talk." And I looked at their site and I thought, "Whoa, I don't see anything they're interested in." MD was something that with a bit of ambition you look at, and that was not on the list. So I got there and they said, "No, we look for a manager, services and parts." Okay. And why do you? I said, "I don't know anything about the technique of dredgers, and they're always in the way." And so they said, "No, we know all the things about dredgers, but we need someone to organize us, to manage us, to run us." And then I said, "Okay, that's my job. Yeah. That's what I honestly think I can do." Yeah. So I joined, and after it's a little bit over a year, the MD was going to leave, and it became a vacancy. And I thought I'd talk to all the people in the yard at my equal level, which wouldn't change if I were a director, by the way. But I knew a lot about it, and I thought, common sense, I can change a number of things for the better. Yeah. And so I applied, and the second in command there applied as well. And I went to him, I said, I'm going to apply for the job. And he said, "Okay, I'm thinking about applying for it." So he was my competitor, and fortunately I got the job.
Oh, really?
And I did that for 2 years as MD. And because I was contracted, I was not employed. When it went a bit less in the shipbuilding industry, they said, "Okay, we can finish your contract easily, and your second man," who was my competitor, whom I completely supported, and I thought he's brilliant. He'll be brilliant, because he had been sort of confined with my predecessor, and he blossomed when we worked together, because I really saw all his qualities. And he took over, and I was fired. Okay. No, not fired. So I started painting my house. So I did painted my house. I've got a big farm house, and
nice.
In the meantime, my wife went to China for a number of months.
Okay.
So
has she always been interested in China? Is that?
No, she's British, and I met her when I was in the submarine service. I spent 2 years in Scotland in Vaslane, the biggest British submarine base. That's where I met her, and then she came to Holland, and she first learned Dutch, and basically she. What was I going to tell you?
Well, about why she went to China, but you were leading up to that whole.
She went to Holland and did Dutch, and then of course after the children were at an age that she could do something, she started doing translations, and then in the whole process you have TEFL, teaching English as a foreign language. Yes. So when I was in the dredge yard, she decided that she wanted to do the TEFL course, and there is one in Amsterdam and there's one in Germany, but she wanted to do it in Japan, in Tokyo.
Oh, okay.
So she went for 6 weeks to Tokyo, and she got her TEFL teaching license. And
while you're painting?
When I was painting.
Okay.
And then that was before the painting. That was a year before. I was still working in the dredge yard, and then when I resigned from the dredge yard. She said suddenly, I resigned the 1st of October, and end of October she started saying, I'd like to start using my TEFL, and again I thought somewhere in Europe, but she says China. So she was for 2 weeks every morning, very early on the iPad, at Skyping with possible employers in China, and then she found one. Then it was enormous effort because she was British, she lived in Holland, to get the visa.
I can imagine,
for China. Yeah. And she left for China, and basically she was going to stay there for a year, but after 2 food poisonings, she decided after 5 months that she had seen enough of it. Yeah. And now she's learning Arabic.
Oh, superb!
I'm really impressed with her.
Yeah.
Because I would like to learn Arabic, because we all hate it. I mean, as Dutch, I don't know, Brits have that as well. We hate it when we don't understand what people are talking about.
Absolutely.
And Dutch are so polite that we will never talk Dutch unless we really want to say something that you don't want anyone else to know. In general, if there is someone who doesn't speak Dutch but does speak English, we will. We had whole submarines speaking English.
Oh, really?
Because we did on our submarines, we took over the submarine command course the Brits had. We took it over, and we sometimes, before that, when the Brits still did it, but they did the course on a Dutch submarine, the whole submarine would speak in English all the time.
I've always been amazed when I visited Holland how well you guys.
It's got to do with because it has to do with the fact that in my days all the television series were in English with subtitles, so you heard it all the time.
Yeah.
Germany, for example, doesn't have any automatic teaching because they dub all the films. So you have James Bond and John Wayne, or the modern ones, Clooney, all speaking German.
Yeah, that's like France as well.
Yes. So that's. But nowadays you see a shift in the attention of the young people to the other social media, and so I think now I sometimes meet young Dutch people who can't speak English.
Oh, really?
Which is
so rare. It's gone the other way.
Yeah.
So, oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's. On the other hand, at schools they teach to talk, and in the past they taught you to read and to write, but talking was the last thing while communicating. The first is basically talk to each other.
Yeah. Okay, so how did you end up here?
So that's when my previous boss in that yard called me, and I was with my son on the way to the cinema in Holland. And
what were we going to see?
The Dunkirk.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, and so that basically after he asked it, I thought, brilliant, because I could also use the money again, because my son, my youngest son, had decided that he was going to do a second master's in Barcelona.
Okay.
And he said, I get a grant, and that didn't happen, of course, but he was already in Barcelona, and but anyway, I came here.
And what's your experience been, since being here?
I have no experience in the Middle East, so to me it's
exactly.
It's starting to know or learning to know the Middle East and then Qatar specifically. I've got the advantage that I stopped drinking when I was in the Coast Guard because I was always on duty.
Okay.
And after that, I didn't restart drinking. So the alcohol thing is
that's
not
handy.
here.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's handy here.
Yeah.
But I love the sun. I love the temperatures.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm now 21 degrees here. I find cold. If I go back to Holland, 21, I probably say it's nice and warm. Yeah. But here, I think it has lasted for too long now. The winter here. I still love it, and I understand from people who have been here longer or have left in the past, because there are quite a few people from Damen who also have lived here, occasionally visit again, and they say that 4 years is the breaking point. Then either you love it or you want to go. Yeah. And I'm still in the I love it phase, because they make things so beautiful here all the time.
No, absolutely.
And it has something also to do with the level of the salaries of the workers, because in Holland you can't afford to keep everything so up to date.
Yeah.
But if I look at the buildings, if I look at the side of the roads, if I look at basically everything, they try to make things beautiful. If you go into the Pearl now, they have the whole middle of the road lit with poles with lights on it, and the palm trees, the bottom part of the palm trees are completely lit as well. And then I think somewhere there must be someone saying, I think this is a good idea. In Holland they would say, costs too much money.
Yeah, very true.
We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And that's impressive, and impressive the fact how they're dealing with the siege.
Yeah. Did that affect you guys?
It was before my time when it started.
Yeah.
So by the time
so you came in after the
blockade.
Okay.
Settled.
Yeah.
But it's impressive how Qatar dealt with it, and
very admirable.
Yeah. So it's only the people visiting who, because they said in the past they would go for an evening out in Dubai, and now it's I think 5-6 hours.
No, me and my wife would take the family and just have a quick visit over to Dubai for the weekend.
Yeah, and that's some other limitations. I can get in my apartment. They don't change the towels anymore during the cleanup because they used to get them from Dubai.
Oh, really?
And I don't know if cleaning in Dubai is now cheaper than cleaning here, but I have my doubts. But it's I still enjoy it, and to go back to my company, over the years it has grown first to about 800 to 900 people.
Yeah, how did that come about with Nakilat and Damen, partnering up?
Yeah.
What was the...
Well, it started, of course, with Qatar Vision 2030, which I have read also and have on my desk, which is basically a very good document. And some other countries in the world could do with that, if you then follow it up.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And so basically the requirement was to get an independent maritime industry here in Qatar. And they looked for a partner. And Damen is a family company owned by Qatar Damen, and his best idea was, why don't I produce vessels in stock?
Okay.
On stock.
Yeah.
Because in the car industry they do that. And, so why don't we do that? Standardize and build stock. And that has been so successful that he's got now, Damen has about 35 yards around the world, basically building 200, 300 vessels per year, and a big service organization worldwide.
Wow. And
also leading in a lot of developments in new ships. All the family invests nearly all of the profits back into the company. So it's a company. It's they always say the family. It's a family company.
Yeah.
And a lot of people serve their lifetime in the company.
Oh, really?
Sometimes they go away, but then they return.
Yeah.
And I always said when I leave the Navy, I've always been proud of the Navy. If I go and work somewhere else, it has to be a company that I can be proud of. It's not just earning money and trying to find a place to earn money. I have to have a good feeling about it. So Damen has a worldwide reputation, and that's, I think, why Nakilat talked to Damen.
Yeah.
And Damen basically provides Nakilat Damen Shipyards Qatar with all the ship designs,
right,
and a lot of the purchasing of parts because Damen has such a big requirement a year that we can lift on their reduction in cost.
Oh, okay.
We're trying more and more because it's also policy here, of course, to source materials from Qatar. If we can get the same quality, even if it's a bit more expensive, we will go for Qatari suppliers.
Good. That's good for the local industry.
And basically the first number of years there was a bit of a forced market because the ports were told if you want tugs, then they will be built at NDSQ.
Right.
So we, as I said, built about 38 vessels. But now we are sort of set. The market is a bit saturated. Then there are coming new requirements because Hamad Port, the next container terminal, is going to be opened, and it's going very well with Hamad Port. So we hope that means more tugs, and we want to build them. The same goes if they get extra trains for the LNG production in Ras Laffan. That will be more tankers. The 60 tankers that have been in the news all the time. They'll need more tugs. So we're waiting for to be approached. But there's been a change that the companies who operate the tugs want to have more competitive prices. Damen products are very good.
But
expensive. And here, because the dockyard is the best outfitted dockyard I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And that also results in quite large overheads. So now we really have to compete. We don't want to compromise on the quality.
No.
We have to be very sharp on cutting cost to be able to offer various ships at competitive prices. That's my aim at the moment.
And you mentioned that there's, Damen or Nakilat and Damen has produced different types of ships as well. Has that always been the case? Have they always just focused on, is their core business tugs, or it's been just
Damen does
whatever?
Yes, they're now moving into the cruise ship market.
Oh, really?
We're not in that yet. It's a very, very special market. But they bought a second, the biggest shipyard in Romania. They had the biggest one in Romania, and they bought the biggest one now as well. And the intention is to go for cruise ships, smaller, a niche market again. Basically, cruise ships operating in areas that are not frequently visited by cruise ships, which is the Arctic area. And the Damen, I mean, one of the things they invented basically was you have your yacht, of course, here. But you have your big 60, 80, 100 meter yacht, and then normally they use a supply vessel as a sort of support vessel to the yacht, to put all the toys on or the helicopter.
Well, I wouldn't know, but yes, I'll take your word for it. Okay.
And Damen now basically created a concept. Why don't we design a support ship? So if you put all the toys, so the water scooters, the helicopter, the submarine, anything on this support vessel, you can have a smaller main
because you don't need the space.
And the advantage is the owner of the vessel has been playing with his toys. They're on the beach or wherever it is. The yacht just goes away,
and then
they clean up the mess, overtake the mother yacht and the next place where they want to play. When they arrive there, the water scooters are in the water, the submarine is in the water, and they can. And it works.
I'm sure it does.
They're selling.
Oh, really?
You talk about 55 meter and bigger.
So the support vessel wouldn't be as fancy. It would just be,
Yeah, no, it would be more. Commercial, but still looking good because you.
Oh, it has to look good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And basically we converted with Damen basically that type of vessel into a super yacht. And if you look inside the port here in Doha, you see the vessel lying.
Really?
It's a 71 meter fast diving support vessel in super yacht quality. And I am anything but an expert on super yachts. So when I joined NDSQ, they showed me the interior of the vessel, and I thought, this is really beautiful.
Yeah.
This is really, and it's all the best materials you can find, and I'm.
And does that come out of a catalogue, or is it whatever the client?
Yes. So it's the the vessel from its original design had to be enlarged with about 2 meters to fit everything in. Because some owners have requirements on safety, but also on the security side. And it's a fast diving support, so it has a pressure chamber on board, one of the best, most modern diving chambers in case a diver comes up and has to be put under pressure again. And it's
and how long on average do these boats take to
build? These 3 years.
Really?
Was I think if you count netto, it was about 3 years that they took the construction.
And with Damen, do they? You said they're based all over the world. Do they specify that it has to have like Dutch management leading it? Because I know some companies, depending on where they're from, always insist that management.
Well, in NDSQ they started off, and that was also something Nakilat wanted.
Yeah,
I think. With Dutch management. The key positions were Dutch, and then the position quite often next to the key person was sometimes Qatari. And but over the years, because of the reductions, the number of Dutch people have drastically reduced. Only the basic system in the yard is very good. I've never seen anywhere in any company I was an SAP system that was used properly. Because I know SAP systems.
Not really.
It's basically the computer program to support your business management. You put basically everything in it. And then if it's very simple to generate management reports. If I press the button, I should be able to see the present financial situation of NDSQ. But normally in companies they decide on that different SAP systems. It's basically ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. ERP systems. And SAP is a company that makes it. But you have to put what they normally do is they introduce in the company a new system. And they give 1 day training to the guys.
Oh, really?
And then they say, okay, and you have a few experts who have more than 1 day training. But to explain, for example, in the dredge yard they thought it was a storage place of data. So basically, if you want to know anything, you go in the system and you can find it. No, the idea is you put the things in the system, and then on a continuous base, you can generate whatever you want. Answers you give to them. So, as an example, all the infrastructure in the yard was put by the facilities and maintenance manager into SAP with the manufacturer's instructions for after a year you have to do this maintenance, after 2 years that, after 4 this, and after 5 years. He put that all in the system, and then the system can generate, if it's now 2019, it's February, so give me all the tasks I have to do, and then also with what spares you need, and if you program it well, the system will say 2 months before you need the spare that you need to order it if you don't have it, and that's.
So how does that relate to Dutch management?
Well, the combination of the two is that they probably introduced it. They gave the space to do it.
And then
and one of the things I find is really good in the way the Dutch, but also the Westerns more do is giving trust to people. And that's basically allowing others to make mistakes at my expense. I'm the boss, and I've given you the space to do whatever you want to do. And then you go wrong, you make a mistake, and then you come hopefully and tell me, and then we can sort out how we can solve it.
And learn from there.
And here it's very much avoiding mistakes. And strange enough, people find that very strange for a military guy. I've always said rules, procedures, and regulations are basically there not to be adhered to. Because they are built for 95% of the cases, and the chance that you meet one of the in the 5% is quite high.
Right.
And and then those rules and regulations don't fit, and then you some people desperately try to get it into the system, and basically you hurt people.
Yeah.
So
I find that here, where people are trying to follow the procedures,
yes,
and don't really think out of the box. You know, when you meet someone,
it's limiting, and because I also the reason, and then they say, why do you have procedures and so on? I said, well, if we build a dredger, and that's another advantage. I'll explain why that in Damen system is so good. Is basically that you think in an ideal world, how would I be able to best build this vessel? And it means you are perfect, I am perfect, the material is reliable, we do everything right the first time. That's why you have the procedure. That's why the military have procedures. So if you don't know, use the procedure, and if you don't have time to think, use the procedure.
Yeah.
In real life, things happen.
Absolutely.
And then you have to start adjusting. But if you don't have the reference how it should be done in an ideal world, you're just building a ship. And at the end you find out that you've taken twice the time because you basically had closed down the ship, and then you said, the engines are still outside. We still have to put the engines in.
Yeah.
So that's why there is in the procedure, somewhere you put the engines in and then seal the rest of the vessel. And in Damen, building stock vessels means you don't have the interference of a client, a customer.
Ah, yeah,
because
very true.
You build a tug, and then the customer comes in, I like it pink. I like the outside, or ginger. I like ginger tug. Yeah. And then, but we agreed it was going to be blue. Yeah, but I changed my mind. I pay for it, but it has to be ginger. And then we put Caterpillar engines in. And then I've talked to a neighbor, and the Caterpillars are not. I want Cummins, but we have just put the engines in. I'll pay for it. So if you build stock, you have no interference.
Yeah, no,
you can basically follow the procedure.
This is it. Yeah.
And therefore the cheapest way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's.
What about technology? How's technology changing the shipping world? Are you know, we're all very conscious about the climate, and you know, are Damen very conscious about this? Are they?
Yes, there are. One is, for example, ships ballast water. Ships, if they don't have cargo, they load water. Yeah. Seawater. Yeah. And they load seawater here, and they dump it in Rotterdam because that's where they're going to load. And in the water here are all kinds of little animals that are not used to northern waters, but can change quite rapidly. So we have a number of not native sea species that have eaten half the Dutch population in the waters. So that's the reason why now you have ballast water treatment systems. Ships are no longer allowed to dispose of the ballast water they've taken somewhere. They have to clean it first before they can dump it. That's one. Then next year the new rules for exhaust fumes, which means the amount of sulfur in the exhaust in the fuel has to be reduced to avoid that it's coming into the air. Which is
okay, that's good.
So there are two solutions for the vessels. They can either buy low sulfur fuels, oil, which will be more expensive because they have to take it out. Yeah. And the other option is they change to another propulsion fuel. That's where LNG at the moment is coming in. That LNG, in my opinion, will be the oil of the future. Is already changing, but at the moment, for existing vessels, it's quite expensive to convert from fuel oil to LNG. But LNG is the cleanest fossil fuel. Yeah. So for the CO2 in the air, that's going to happen.
So you're building ships with these.
There are,
engines.
there are.
Okay, there are.
And it's. I always find it funny that we have in Nakilat, of course. Nakilat has 65 LNG tankers, and they run on fuel.
Yeah,
and then you said, why don't you put
absolutely
the fuel lead into your cargo? Yeah, no, but I think it will happen. It will happen. In the moment, I think they will use the low sulfur fuel first, but when they get new vessels, I'm sure they will look at LNG propulsion.
That's good to hear. So, moving to the World Cup, are you going to be here for the World Cup?
The walk?
the World Cup?
I hope so. I hope so.
Are you hoping there's going to be a Dutch team?
I hope so. The problem with the Dutch is that in the past we always had 1 or 2 world-class players who were basically the catalyst in the team to get it to a higher level.
Yeah.
And at the moment
you don't have that?
We don't have that.
But don't you have a good team?
We have a good team.
Well, isn't that if they play well, then...
Yes.
But you do need your, finishers.
Yeah, but
you don't have any finishers.
I think we missed out on the European Championships, and I don't know if we already qualified for the... we just started the series for the qualification for the World Cup in Qatar. And I'm impressed with the stadiums. I think they're beautiful.
Yeah.
And
they're amazing when you go past them.
Yeah, and especially if they I knew that from the beginning when I came here that they intend to give 1 or 2 to Africa countries, so they have to be taken apart and transported there. So
will they be using your ships?
No, we don't.
You don't do cargo?
We do transports.
Oh, okay.
No, it's we build them and we repair them. We build them.
Yeah.
So it's. But I'm for the time being, I'm happy here, and it's a challenge.
That's good to hear.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, thank you, Jankees. Thank you for coming on the
pleasure.
show.
Time flies.
Absolutely. No, I think we've gone over our half an hour, but no, I really appreciate it. It's been fascinating to hear your story.
It was a pleasure. Normally, you're not allowed to talk about yourself, so.
No, you said that at the beginning, so yeah. No, thank you. Pleasure. You. So thank you, everyone, and we wish you a very good week, and we'll catch up with you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.